You lived in my house. This line hasn't sat quite right with me since I heard it. But I hadn't been able to put my finger on why until tonight. It finally hit me. Rick Prime isn't talking about our Rick living with Beth and Jerry in Prime's dimension. That's Jerry's house, as Jerry has said again and again throughout the series. So when did our Rick live in Rick Prime's house? There's also the matter of Rick having memories of toddler Morty and Bird Person having a picture of Rick holding baby Morty. Can it be that after Rick Prime killed our Rick's family, our Rick went to Rick Prime and took his place? Rick Prime kills our Rick's family. Some amount of time passes. Our Rick invents portal travel to go. Eventually, he finds Rick Prime's dimension, where he discovers Prime's Diana and Beth, who had been abandoned by Rick Prime. They actually think our Rick is Rick Prime, and he can't help but be drawn back into the family life that had been torn away from him. Prime's Diana is just happy to have Rick back, and our Rick treats her better than Prime ever did. Rick hunts less for Prime, telling himself his plan is to wait for Prime to show up in his original dimension. Over a decade passes. Rick still wants revenge on Prime, but the issue isn't as pressing because of Diane Prime and Beth Prime. Our Rick gets by emotionally, although a part of him is always tormented, knowing it isn't really his family. Perhaps at some point he even changes dimensions to see if it feels different, but it's always hollow. So he always ends up back in Prime's dimension. Will eventually show up and taking what solace he can from Prime's family. Beth Prime meets Jerry and has Summer, and then Morty a few years later. Our Rick is actually present for this, and Diane Prime is still around. Rick Prime has been off doing his thing, and by chance he discovers that our Rick has been living with his abandoned family. This enrages Rick Prime, who despite abandoning his family still feels they are his. This is when he decides to invent the Omega device and erase all Dianes. If he doesn't want a family, no Rick gets a family. Our Rick is shattered once again when all the Dianes are erased. He decides to wipe the entire Prime family's memory of him being there the last 12 years or so, hoping it's enough to keep Rick Prime from killing more of them. He then leaves to hunt more actively for Rick Prime again. This is the part of his crybaby backstory flashback sequence where he looks older and appears to be infiltrating some kind of Rick headquarters. Also in this period in his life is when he meets Bird Person, Squanchy, Gearhead's brother, and Unity. Eventually our Rick gives up the hunt for Prime, going back to despair and drunkenness. But he's made a lot of Rick's enemies with his destructive hunt for Prime. This is the part of his flashback sequence where he kills a bunch of Ricks, then agrees to a truce and helps make the Citadel, working with the Council of Ricks. By this time the Council of Ricks has made the Morty Brainwave discovery and started the Every Rick Gets a Morty program.